Hi, my name is Anila Haxa, and what I'm presenting today is an overview of legal procedures on disciplining students with disabilities. Here I'm going to present two behavior scenarios that we deal every day in our life. Student walks in a classroom and knocks off all the files and folders that you have on your teacher desk, pictures, and other stuff that you might have there. The student is very upset. Another scenario is you as a teacher are assigning a worksheet. Student wipes the sheet off the desk and pouts in his seat. How you as a teacher are going to handle these situations? These are two behavior scenarios that can be resolved with teacher interventions, but there are so many behaviors that are beyond teacher interventions, and that led me to do statistics on challenging behaviors for the state of New Jersey and for the United States in general. Based on a search, I found that New Jersey does not provide data on how many students are restrained, expelled, or secluded from school. And then the U.S. Department of Education shows that the current data that they have, it's for the year 2015-2016, where 66% of students are secluded and 71% of students are restrained, and that represent only 12% of the student body. Again, we're talking about the students with disabilities. And according to the Government Accountability Office, a report that was done in 2019, and again was for the year 2015-2016, 70% of the school districts nationwide and 78% of the New Jersey school district are reporting zero incidents on restraint and on seclusion. But what is discipline and how IDEA is affecting it? The definition taken from the dictionary is the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment to correct disobedience. When I read the definition, I immediately highlight the keywords training people rather than punishing them. Our job as educators is to all educate students, including the students with disabilities. Therefore, why not educate them to obey the rules rather than punishing them for misbehavior? In reality, we know that not all the behaviors are going to be prevented. Therefore, in the IDEA amendments of 1997, the Congress addressed several issues and implemented the goals of disciplinary provisions, which were: all students, including the students with disabilities, deserve safe, well-disciplined schools and orderly learning environments. Teachers and school administrators should have the tools they need to assist them in preventing misbehavior and discipline problems, and also to address those problems if they arise. There must be a balanced approach to the issue of discipline of students with disabilities, which should reflect the need for orderly and safe schools and the need to protect the right of the students with disabilities. Students with a disability have a right to an appropriate developed IP with well-designed behavior intervention strategies. In other words, what it means then, yes, we want the schools to be conducted in an orderly manner and learning to take place, but also when it comes to the students with disability, we need to see if the behavior is due to the disability or not. And if it is due to the disability, then a behavior intervention plan should be placed that should be part of the IP. The concept of discipline was developed from an English phrase in loco parentis, which means in place of the parent. This means that the school personnel, including teachers, have the authority not only teach but also to guide, correct, and discipline a student in order to accomplish learning and educational goals. However, does not give them fully rights in the place of the parents. All schools have federal and state laws that they need to follow when dealing with students with disabilities. However, all the laws need to follow and mirror IDEA, which initially did not have any provision for to address discipline issues. There are two cases that are the first one initiated the discipline. And the first case was Stewart versus Nappy, and the second case was Doe versus Koger. On the first one, Stewart versus Nappy case was a third grade student with disability who was manifesting behavioral problems and was involved on several school-wide disturbances. This case, the court ruled that yes, you can suspend students with disabilities if that disability is creating or possess a danger to the others. Versus on Doe versus Culver case, the court ruled that you cannot suspend a student with disability if the behavior is manifestation of the disability, is due to his disability. This later became known as manifestation of disability. The due process right was developed as a protection for the students with disability on having an unfair and mistaken exclusion. Students must understand and know what consequences will be if they are engaged in prohibited behaviors. Therefore, teachers and school administrators have a right to write rules and regulation to govern students' behavior. Those rules, though, must be clear, fair, and reflect school-related purpose and apply to all students. However, when it comes for the students with disability, those rules could be altered if the student is deprived of his or her special education services, the procedural safeguard of IDEA are triggered, and or interferes with student's IP, behavior intervention plan, or Section 504 accommodation. There are two court cases that need to be highlighted because they definitely have a contribution on extended due process: the Ghost versus Lopez and Granis versus Ordean. The Ghost versus Lopez, there were 9 high school students who were suspended for 10 days without hearing. The court ruled that you cannot suspend a student without a due process hearing. On Granis versus Ordean, the court ruled that not only you cannot suspend them, but also give them a right to hear their side of the story. There are 2 types of discipline. This teacher discipline, which starts in a classroom, and that has to do with not just eliminating the problem, but also teaching students prosocial behavior. And the Dixon versus Johnson court case said or ruled that teachers should be free to impose minor forms of classroom discipline, such taking, asking students to do extra assignments, taking away from the activities, etc. That leads to timeout procedure, which is used by the teachers, and there are 2 types: non-exclusionary timeout, where the student has been removed from an activity but is allowed to watch, and there is exclusionary timeout, where the student is totally removed from the activity and is not allowed to watch or be part of it. Usually the conflicts in the classroom starts with a verbal, and then they do escalate to physical contact. So here I am giving some intervention steps to deal with verbal de-escalation. The first one is listen, allow the person to vent without you becoming judgmental to what they say and how they say it. Accept them the way they are, focus on one issue at a time, encourage assertiveness, not aggression, offer more than one choice on a table, so this way they can pick. And having a contract, that tool definitely is helpful. Now, this I do apply for my students, and again, I teach high school, so this is different, I think, in my opinion, because the students in high school, at least you can reason, you can sit down with them and you can have a conversation. So definitely this is something that helps to deal with discipline in a classroom. When it comes to school disciplines, there are short-term disciplinary removals and long-term disciplinary removals. For short-term, the main thing to keep in mind is that the suspension should not pass 10 consecutive day limits. If it does pass, then educational services will be provided. The IP team has to convene and has to address the change of placement issue. Also, multiple suspension that total 10 cumulative school days, even though each one of them happen on different time, still are considered a change of placement and will be and shall be treated as such. When it comes to long-term disciplinary removals, we're talking about suspension, expulsion. They are qualified as a change of placement, and there are different procedures that need to be followed on that. Two cases that need to be mentioned on this one is Honig versus Doe case and Doe versus Maher. On Honig versus Doe case, the court ruled that you cannot suspend the student if the behavior is due to the disability. And in Doe versus Maher case, the court ruled that the student should stay on a current placement until the review process has been finished and a decision has been made, unless the parents and the school official have reached an agreement. Short-term suspension will include in-school suspension and out-of-school suspensions. In-school suspension is happen in a school environment where the student has been taken out of the classroom and stays in an isolated classroom with supervision of an adult. He continues to do the work in there provided by all the teachers. This kind of a suspension does not constitute change of placement as long as it's not used as a de facto long-term suspension. Okay? Out of the school suspension is also short-term, and it takes place out of the school, and it should not be more than 10 days. So it goes up to 10 days, and students should be provided with educational service. Long-term disciplinary removals is removal for 45 days. This happens only on extreme situations where the student is possessing or bringing weapons at school or school environment, school events. His uses or sells illegal drugs, controlled substances, is dangerous to his life or is putting the lives of the others in danger. Any disciplinary action that is consisting on change of placement of the students, then a manifestation determination should take place within 10 school days. If the behavior is related to the student disability, then the functional behavior assessment should be conducted and the behavior intervention plan should be developed and implemented. If the behavior is not caused by the disability, then the team will review and give clear explanation of what the consequences are due to the student's action. Now, if the parent is not agreeing with what the team is finding, then they may request a due process hearing and then they can appeal the decision. During this time, however, the students will remain in interim settings. If during the manifestation determination was concluded that the behavior that the student was manifesting is due to his disability, then the IP team has to be has to get together and conclude a functional behavior assessment and behavior intervention plan, and that both has to be done within 10 days. The functional behavior assessment, or FBA, really goes to the root of the problem, what causes that behavior, what are the precedents, and then behavior intervention plan, or BIP, will have all the intervention and strategies that has to be implemented in order to reduce the problem's behavior and increase the more acceptable behaviors. As the IP, the behavior intervention plan has to be individualized, proactive, and multi-dimensional, and also has to have goals. So every time the IP is being renewed, is being evaluated, then also the goals for behavior are looked at it and changed or adapted based on the student needs. I'm closing my presentation, which was very hard to do within 10 minutes, with two phrases: be positive and be supportive to the students all the time. David Brooks said, "The point of being a teacher is to do more than impart facts, is to shape the way students perceive